Welcome to another episode of Security Minutes. I'm here with Matt Youman. Matt, how are you today?
Very well, great to be here.
Matt, I want to talk about defense in depth. We talked earlier about business email compromise and the challenges that represents. And I think this is an area where defense in depth is so important. I really wanted to get your perspective on what that looks like when we're talking about content filtering and email security.
It's a great point, and to be honest, Mimecast's philosophy is defense in depth. If you look at our technology stack, we're a mix of 50 different types of technology we've developed ourselves, tech that we've acquired, third-party technology, and also third-party feeds. So in essence, when a company deploys Mimecast, they're not just adding on one layer, they're adding on 50 extra layers of security.
Really good point.
Before I mentioned too that email being the #1 attack vector and it's significantly increasing, customers can no longer, or businesses can no longer rely on a sole solution. You need to take a defense in depth approach, and not just for risk mitigation, but to help our security and SOC teams.
What does that normally look like?
So when we talk about defense in depth, we've spoken a lot about artificial intelligence and BEC, but the reality is that's not the only type of attack we see. We see credential harvesting attacks through URLs. Why? Everyone's living out of the cloud. Attackers want keys, the keys, to an organization's 365 tenant. We're still seeing ransomware deployed through attachments. There was one very recently, one of the larger threat actors from Russia deployed a campaign only a couple of days ago using RDPs. Therefore, we don't want to just rely on AI to use BEC, but we also want to augment our existing email security stack with dynamic sandbox analysis for attachments and URLs, with dynamic analysis in terms of email content to understand whether it's spam or BEC. We need to take a comprehensive approach. And when we look at something like Mimecast, some of the technology, there may be a crossover, but we're using different approaches, in some cases different vendors. Therefore, it's true defense in depth, which what we've found from our large customer base of 50,000 is that it significantly mitigates risk. And not just mitigates risk, but there are a lot of operational efficiencies that companies realize on the back of deploying Mimecast.
And I think about this in the context of like going into a data center. Now, maybe not everybody's been into a data center before, but there's always one door with some biometrics and then another door that you have to go through. So a single point of access is essentially a single point of failure. And I can even say in our own organization, we run a multi-defense approach when it comes to business email compromise and phishing and just protecting our organization from all that inbound information that's coming in.
If we look at identity, for example, multi-factor authentication, that's a hot topic at the moment.
Sure is.
Why do we layer that? We don't want a single point of failure.
Makes sense.
Why? If an account's compromised, well, the attacker has access to essentially the organization's data. It's all in the cloud, it's all in 365. If we then look at email, it's critical to the business. 99.9% of businesses need email to operate. It only takes one email to cause an incident. Therefore, companies need to start looking at layering their defenses. We can't have a single point of failure. If something goes wrong in the sole email security provider or technology that we're using, what's the backup solution? What are we doing?
So if I wanted to test this in my environment or see how my environment is currently stacks up from a security perspective, what could I do?
So there's a few options when it comes to trialing Mimecast, or more importantly, getting an understanding of whether or not you're at risk from an email perspective. The first step that we typically recommend is a historic threat scan.
Right, yep.
Completely non-invasive via the Microsoft Graph API. Essentially what we do there is perform a scan of all emails that have been delivered over the past 30 days. We're looking for malware, we're looking for BEC attacks, we're looking for malicious URLs. That's a great first step in performing a security risk assessment when it comes to email. Further to that, we don't just want that risk assessment. We now want to understand, well, how does this behave in my production environment? Within our trial deployment model, we can automatically flick you over to a production mode where you initiate a threat scan, you complete it in, let's say, 2 to 3 days. You might be happy with it, you might be concerned. At the click of a button, you can flick Mimecast over to production mode where we're scanning your live mail flow. From there, you're having an understanding of the operational impact and then live risks that we're detecting.
Because you have a solution that's integrated into M365, don't you?
Exactly right. We've got a very heavy customer base when it comes to Microsoft and 365. Mimecast is a 365 shop itself. If we think about most businesses, their world revolves around Microsoft and 365 in terms of collaboration and business operations. We've had a lot of businesses approach us because of that very reason. It's so critical to the business and how it operates. They want to take a defense in depth approach. They might still be utilizing Microsoft's security offering, which is doing a great job, but given how critical it is to the business, they want to layer it with a Mimecast.
Having that extra level of protection, that defense in depth, it's so important. Matt, thank you very much. And stay tuned for our next episode where we're going to talk about securing collaboration.